it'll be like rust spots on the car. They're small and you don't actually get them taken care of, but they'll eventually add up to something quite major, and you just can't get rid of it, and the car has to be trashed. And the same thing should have happened to our genome if we'd been around millions of years.
Now you mentioned, and I forget where it is here, maybe I can find it, but yeah, it was Haldane's dilemma. Haldane's dilemma. Tell us who he was.
See, J.B.S. Haldane was a leading British evolutionist the first half of the century, and quite a good mathematician, a staunch communist as well, which is not surprising. Now, he realized that there was not enough time for to accumulate good mutations, because in fact you'd have to get rid of so many creatures in order to get a population with just a good mutation. That's the thing. That you've got all these creatures have to be eliminated to advance the species, and that's a cost of selection that he's pointed out. And then then the problem is that there's just not enough time to eliminate all the with the creatures without that good mutation. So therefore we couldn't have accumulated that many changes, say from the alleged ape ancestry in say 5 million years. It's just not enough time to accumulate the differences between us and the apes and other creatures as well. Not enough generations have gone on to do that.
So there's a mathematical impossibility here.
Yeah.
I think you make the point somewhere too in the book with regard to this creative view of natural selection, that it's far simpler to break something than to make it.
Oh yeah.
And the issue really is here the creative dynamic. What was it? What is it that actually makes it all come together?
Well, they have to assume that although the mutations we observe tend to be harmful, but when a typo, you have to go back and correct it. So it stands to reason that mutation harms things. That's why you don't stand up in front of X-rays too long, because the mutations are going to make things worse. So they have to assume there's the occasional good mutation. And the thing is, if evolution were true, there should be heaps of good mutations observable. But all they can produce is a handful of disputable ones that actually increase the information, which is what they need to do. I mean, you think of a primordial soup has no information. The simplest cell has about 600 kilobytes, and if Bill Gates in living memory said you wouldn't need more than 640 kilobytes for your computer, which is a bit of a joke. And now humans have about 3 gigabytes worth. And so information must be going uphill, but where is the evidence that uphill mutations are occurring at this sort of rate that you need, anywhere near the sort of rate that you need?
What's the reaction of a committed evolutionist to someone like you in discussion or in debate or having read your book? Do they just dismiss you as a religious wingnut?
Pretty much.
Even though you come from a scientific perspective?
Well, the thing is, what they've done is like the no true Scotsman fallacy. They say that all real scientists believe in evolution. I don't believe in evolution, therefore I'm not a real scientist, you see. So it becomes a circular argument that by definition I can't be a scientist because real science has to be materialistic. But that's not a scientific statement. That's actually a philosophical statement about what scientists should be. And that's the thing. It's a case of the different worldviews is the reason they don't like what I have to say. They don't want to believe in an intelligent designer or a creator.
So let's shift from the negative to the positive. You're a creationist. You're a scientist. You're a brilliant chess master. You've got a lot happening up there in that head of yours. Why are you a man of faith? What is it that's at the root of your worldview and perspective as a follower of Christ?
Well, first of all, I think the evidence supports it, and there's also a huge internal consistency in the biblical worldview, because it gives us an answer for where we came from, why we've got to the mess we're in today, and also a hope for redemption. And Jesus has proved that there is such a thing happening because he rose from the dead and appeared to 500 people at once and showed he is the first fruits, and that's the hope which we have, that in fact death is not the end, and that we can be right with our Creator because of what Jesus has done for us on the cross and how he conquered death.
How did you come to faith personally?
Oh, I mean, it's hard to really know. I mean, it's not a case of a dramatic road to Damascus experience, but I think it's a case of realizing that there's a whole lot of internal consistency in the Christian worldview, which doesn't exist in the atheistic worldview. In fact, the last chapter of my book, I talk about how the Christian worldview was essential for the rise of modern science that Dawkins worshipped. But in fact, without the Christianity in the first place, he wouldn't have science to fall back on at all.
Yeah, you actually, well, why don't you just comment quickly? We've got a few minutes here. There is such a thing as objective truth.
Oh, yes. I mean, if you don't believe me, try and deny it. You see, if you say there is no such thing as truth, is that statement itself true?
You also say the universe is real.
Well, I mean, some of the Eastern philosophies say the universe is an illusion, and everything is an illusion, but in that case, is that statement an illusion? So you see...
Right. You have a kind of a downward cycle there. The universe is orderly.
Now, that's the big problem for any non-Christian viewpoint. You see, if Zeus and his grand gang were in charge, you wouldn't expect order in the universe. And the atheists can't justify order in the universe. I mean, the New Age philosophies can't, because if the universe is a great thought, it could change its mind at any moment. But because we have a God of order who is not the author of confusion, the great scientists of the past were inspired to try to find this natural law by which God upholds his creation. And people like Kepler said he was thinking God's thoughts after him. Sir Isaac Newton wrote more about the Bible than he wrote about science, but he thought that science was doing God's work of dominion and also finding out the order by which God has upheld his creation.
Since God is sovereign, he was free to create as he pleased.
Well, the thing is, a lot of the Greeks' philosophy held back science. Like Aristotle, I mean, he would say, well, under his philosophy, heavy objects would fall faster than light objects. But who is he to say what God should be doing? The great scientists said, well, hang on, to find that out, we have to investigate nature and find out how God is actually upholding his creation. Rather than going to a philosopher, we have to actually go to nature itself to find out what God is actually doing.
Wasn't Aristotle the one, about 350 BC, who came up with this concept of the prime mover, or the unmovable mover?
Yes.
Sort of the first domino of a domino effect. I mean, he was really maybe ahead of his time in that regard.
Now, that's something he did do right in a sense, but again, it's more like a deistic viewpoint than a theistic one.
Yeah. You make the point man can and should investigate the world because God gave us dominion over his creation.
Well, that's an important thing, because, I mean, if nature itself is divine, then science wouldn't be possible, because we really have no right to investigate the divine. But if nature is not sacred because it's created, then we have every right to investigate it. I mean, you don't have to pray to a spirit before chopping a tree down or before boiling water, because it's something we have the right to do as the one God gave dominion to.
Man can initiate thoughts and actions.
Well, I mean, they call themselves free thinkers and rationalists, but under an evolutionary philosophy, why should they trust their own thoughts to be rational if their brain evolved from a monkey's brain? You see, selection can only select for survival value, not for truth or logic. According to their philosophy, the thoughts are just the results of motions of atoms in the brain obeying the fixed laws of chemistry. So under their philosophy, they are not free thinkers.
It's a kind of a mechanism. Do they ever ask the question in their heart of hearts? You know, who started this?
Well, I think even J.B.S. Haldane again just wondered, well, how can he trust his own thoughts if they're just the results of movements of atoms? You see, Lewis makes this point quite well.
Yeah. You like Lewis? Is Lewis a good writer in your view?
I think a lot of insight. I mean, I think he was. I wouldn't trust him on evolution, but I think a lot of other things he was very insightful about. Yes.
Another point you make is results should be reported honestly.
Well, see, Dawkins is on record saying that if evolution is true, that then our thoughts about rights and wrongs and ethics are just illusions. So under his philosophy, why should honesty be a good thing? Let's just do what helps our selective process. And it's no wonder that fraud is such a pervading problem in science, and it's affected some of the best universities in the world.
Well, everybody wants to get ahead and get a name and win a Nobel, right? Well,
that's what happened. And now you've got huge investigations going on with some of the so-called research that's been published.
So, what's next for you, Jonathan? Where are you heading with your life?
Well, I'm working for Creation Ministries International, which I thoroughly support, obviously. So I do writing and I do speaking, and I'm hoping to write quite a few more books on things like general apologetics matters, because I think creation is a foundation, but it's not the only thing that we'd like to do. So there are a few other things I'd like to tackle before I...
And are you living in the States now?
Yes, I've got an American wife, and we've got an American little baby granddaughter, which is nice to be closer to.
In Atlanta, right?
We live in Atlanta, our granddaughter's in Florida, but it's still 9 hours drive is better than 25 hours flying.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, this is absolutely a fantastic opportunity to meet you. The book is called The Greatest Hoax on Earth, ? Refuting Dawkins on Evolution. It's published by Creation Ministries, Creation Book Publishers. Is this available in regular bookstores, or?
I'd like to say so, but I'm not so sure if they have tended to take it. It'd be nice if the bookstore to have that alongside Dawkins' book, wouldn't it? It'd be fair, wouldn't it?
It would be fair. What's your website?
Creation.com.
Creation.com. Jonathan Sarfati. That's how you pronounce it. Jonathan Sarfati is the author, and he's worth checking out, friends. You'll hear more from him. Thanks for coming our way.
Well, thank you for that, Jim.
It's been a pleasure.